no matter how many molecules you can produce with early Earth conditions, plausible conditions, you're still nowhere near producing a living cell. And here's how I know. If I take a sterile test tube and I put in a little bit of fluid with just the right salts, just the right balance of acidity and alkalinity, just the right temperature, the perfect solution for a living cell, and I put in it one living cell. This cell is alive. It has everything it needs for life. Now I take a sterile needle and I poke that cell, and all its stuff leaks out into this test tube. You have in this nice little test tube all the molecules you need for a living cell. Not just the pieces of the molecules, but the molecules themselves. And you cannot make a living cell out of them. You can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So what makes you think that a few amino acids dissolved in the ocean are going to give you a living cell? It's totally unrealistic.
In simplistic terms, these creationists seem to think that the mere existence of an irreversible reaction disproves evolution. The answer to this specific question is, of course, trivial. The bacteria is not a simple organism. It's a grizzled heavyweight that has survived 4 billion years in an environment of harsh competition and is one of the most durable organisms on Earth. Now, perform this same experiment with the bacteria's primitive relatives 4 billion years back, in the times when it was debatable whether it should be classified as life or merely a few primitive, inefficient, self-replicating reactions, and this would have arguably produced a different result. Further, such an experiment should really take into account the planetary quantities of organic matter on Earth, not merely a test tube. Most of the organic matter on Earth was organic long before it was living organic matter. There was still about 500 billion tons of organic matter on Earth before life. And for those who are kind of fuzzy what organic matter is, it's largely any compound of carbon, methane, ethane, methylamine, methanol, etc. And in the molecular composition of the universe, these compounds are not even remotely rare. However, in metaphorical terms, claiming the inability of an irreversibly burst cell to reassemble as proof that abiogenesis is impossible is like claiming that if Galileo and co-workers were given a laptop with all the knowledge necessary to build a space probe, then their inability to build that space probe, basically an irreversible reaction, would prove that it's impossible to build space probes. Galileo lived in the days before electricity, before the days of the discovery of atoms or even chemistry, before the days of Newtonian physics, all those tough rules of motion like the harder you shove it, the faster it moves, and if you don't do anything to it, then nothing happens. Rules of motion that took civilization about 4,000 years to work out. Before the days of mechanical engineering and materials, before the days of water treatment, in the days when the only things that flew were birds, and so on. Now put that same laptop in the team of NASA engineers and they could easily construct a probe. But to Galileo and co-workers it would have been a few hours of magical light, and then after that an interesting sculpture made of bizarre metals and strange non-wooden materials. Indeed, the growth of knowledge makes an interesting metaphor for evolution.